You've probably seen the Amazon bestseller status logo everywhere. Wouldn't you like to get one? What does it really mean? Is it really worth it? I don't know. We have an expert here today who's going to tell you the truth about the Amazon bestseller campaigns and whether you should invest your time, energy, and money into conducting one of those. Hi, I'm Dan Janal. I'm a book coach, developmental editor, and ghostwriter. And no matter where you are in the writing process, I can help you. You can find more information at writeyourbookinaflash.com. Now, let's get started. Our guest today is Robbie Samuels. He's an expert on book launches and promotions. So let's get Robbie's take on the Amazon bestseller campaigns. Take it away, Robbie.
Well, I'm addressing what I think of it as common misconceptions, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I kind of challenge some of people's current beliefs because we do have some strongly held beliefs around this. And I'll say these are just my notions on this. I'm not by any means the only voice in this world around book publishing, launching, marketing, but I do think it's important for us to have a discernment when it comes to what is important and what are the strategies you want to be focusing on. So I'll start with this. I have an unpopular opinion, and that is I believe that the idea of paying for a bestseller campaign is just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Um, the folks who are charging for those services, I think they're doing it maybe in a less ingenuous way, and it's maybe even a little bogus as far as the claims they're making about the impact of reaching number one. Now, I want to just say that I fully understand the allure of the orange bestseller ribbon and have, in fact, received it 30 times across my three books. I am an award-winning indie author of three books that have, again, received number one bestseller 30 times across four different countries. My last book, Break Out of Boredom, Low-Tech Solutions for Highly Engaging Zoom Events, reached number one in 18 different categories. And so, again, I get it. I understand the importance of it. But the question I want to pose to all of you is, does this make me a number one best-selling author? Should I claim number one international best-selling author? Is this as a claim? I'm showing you what I've done. Should I put maybe on the cover of my book or in my bio? In chat, let me know your thoughts. Should I claim number one international best-selling author? And I want to point out while you're thinking about your answer that there are folks who have gotten number one in the US and the number one in Canada, just in two different categories. And they're saying they're number one international bestsellers. And that some of these claims quite often have sold fewer than 100 books. And that's the reason I am hesitant to use this term, since in many cases, even though like I have a substantial, success behind what I mean by number one international bestselling author, most people do not. And some people have written a chapter in a book that they paid thousands of dollars to be a part of. And the promise of writing this chapter and paying these thousands of dollars is that they're going to be able to claim number one international bestselling author. And I want to compare that, my success and their success, with something like the success of a book called Exactly What to Say, which is by Phil M. Jones. It's sold 1.5 million copies and it's been translated into more than 30 languages. It is not a book published by a traditional publisher. It has actually been published by Page Two, which is a hybrid publisher. And I just think calling both of us international best-selling authors, like, it doesn't equate in my brain. And I wish that we had language for how to acknowledge the success in different levels, because I've accomplished something. So what I tend to do is I make an effort to say the whole thing. Like, I tell people that my book's in number one in 30 categories across four countries. I say the whole thing in my bio, in my intro, wherever I need to put it, rather than just using the shortcut. And this brings me back to my earlier point about paying someone to run a bestseller campaign, because while reaching number one in a category is a nice milestone, it's not worth paying someone to get there, because you can sell as little as a dozen books to reach number one in some categories if you know how the Amazon category system works. So the better plan that I'm going to suggest is to focus on getting reviews from likely prospects. And then a byproduct of the process of getting those reviews is you'll likely hit number one. But the good news is that you'll be actually having conversations with likely prospects as you're going through the process of getting those reviews. And those conversations will likely lead to new revenue opportunities, book sales of your book, media opportunities, maybe getting your book into a book club. All of these things are success that you can take to the bank. So I'm going to get to reviews in just a moment, but I first wanted to just kind of say, I'm sorry to say this, but republishing your cover to add the number one Amazon bestseller graphic or the number one international bestseller graphic, it's a really strong indicator that the book was not traditionally published. And there's a strong bias against self-published books in most circles. So calling attention to that fact that it's been published either by hybrid or self-published, it doesn't do the author any favors. So I wanted to share, let's see, I've got another graphic here. Oh, this is I forgot what picture I had on here. So I shared a recent post on LinkedIn, and this was the graphic that I used in order to kind of drive this point home. If you think about it, no traditional publisher is going to add the international bestseller graphic to a cover if it's based on Amazon categories. And I know that I'm being a little hard on these authors, particularly because they were likely guided to do this by somebody that they paid money to, or they thought it was going to be really well received. And I I would have thought the same thing, except I've been part of the National Speakers Association for a really long time, 10 years. And in that time, I learned how poorly this is being viewed by folks who understand the Amazon system can be gamed. And there's also a bit of confusion among new authors about the different terms. And I remember this being really confusing when I was getting started with my first book. See, there's a difference between the number one bestseller and number one new release. And the number one new release means that that book has sold more copies in that category than any other recently published book. It is not number one in the category itself. So the thing that people need to know is that to get that coveted number one bestseller ribbon, there's a few factors that have to be satisfied. And one is the category has to have at least 100 books in it. The book has to be sold. This is kind of a key point here. It has to be sold, and that is a minimum of 99 cents. And it has to outrank all the other books in that category for either Kindle, paperback, or audiobook. And it's a certain time period, and it changes every hour, the rankings. So there are different rankings for each of those three formats. That's something else to be aware of. So you don't really want to split your sales initially. You want to direct them to one of those formats. I tend to direct all sales to Kindle because I can more easily lower that price while keeping the paperback up high and then releasing the audiobook if I have one later on. So you don't want to confuse things by saying you're a number one bestseller when you've had a number one new release, and you don't want to call yourself a number one bestseller when your book has been only free. And I've definitely seen this, particularly years ago when I was getting started with my first book. I was showing people how I hit number one in the free category, and they were calling me a number one bestseller, and I was like, but my book hasn't been sold yet. Like mentally I was like, I am. I got so excited, but there's no orange ribbon for doing this because it's bestseller and these books aren't being sold. So what it means is that book has been downloaded more than other books in the free books section of that particular category. And so you want to be careful that you are claiming things that have substance. If you've done really, really well, like spell out the whole thing. And I just want to say, I understand that authors who've spent so much time, money, energy, talent getting this content created, they want their books to be successful. And I just think we need to make sure that authors, particularly new authors, aren't led to believe that reaching number one bestseller on Amazon is the metric of success they need to put all their money and energy into, particularly if it's about hitting number one once in a category, or even if just a couple of categories. It's not going to be life-changing. It's not going to lead to business success or like a volume of books being sold. And I want to remember, again, why we write books. We write books so people will read them. And for most of us, the writing journey may have been kind of a little hard. It wasn't the fun part for me, at least. I'm raising my hand that like the writing part of this journey was not fun. And I've published 3 books and I write a weekly email newsletter and I still don't identify as a writer. But there was a point while I was writing my first book when I knew it was going to be a reality and I was getting ready to hand the book off to the editor that had the manuscript was being handed off to the editor for those final edits. And I suddenly had this realization that it was a good book and I wanted people to read this book. And that's when I dawned on me that this date that I'd been counting down to, which was the publication date, was actually day one of marketing this book, which was a big shift in my brain. And I happen to really like marketing. So that got me all energized and excited. I know for some people, that's not their favorite part, which is why I'm here. One thing I want to mention is that your launch date and your publication date are not the same date. So your launch date was when it gets published on Amazon or Ingram Spark or any other platform. That is not the same as your launch date. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. Your launch date is not the same date as your publication date. And uh, I think that something we want to be careful of even when we're working with traditional publishers, when they say the release date, they mean the publication date. And I don't know why we would want all this attention on our book on that day, right? I don't understand why people are told to pay for PR or pay to get placed on podcasts before they get any reviews or sales on a book. And I just want to implore you to do yourself a favor and get a bare minimum of 20 reviews on your book before you start announcing it to the world in a really big way. Ideally, you would get 50 or more reviews before getting the world to look at your book because reviews are social proof on the book's sales page. And I just don't understand why people are paying money to drive traffic to a sales page when it has less than 10 reviews. And often it's like 10 ratings and 3 reviews, and 2 of them have the same last name as the author. And I'm like, okay. So in my like process of launching, there is a time period between the publication date and the launch date that's 2.5, 3 weeks. This is your soft launch period. And that's when you get all the people in your launch team to publish their reviews on Amazon. The book's reduced to like 99 cents or $1.99 or something. And then those are all verified reviews. And then when we hit your launch date and maybe have a launch party the day after, at that point, you've already hit number one or number one new release. You've got these 20 or more reviews on your book page. This is really thoughtful and strategic. And again, the number one bestseller effort is a byproduct of running a strategic launch, not the goal of the launch. So
Great. Thanks a lot, Robbie. I'm glad you demystified the entire Amazon bestseller campaign. I was taking notes and I was saying, I can't write bestseller because it's too long. So I wrote BS instead. I thought, gee, that's appropriate, isn't it? So that really works well.
I may have to borrow that.
Feel free. It's my gift to you.
And of course, if you want to have a conversation with me, no obligation, 30-minute complimentary chat, you can fill out my form. Basically, I want to understand more about the goals you have around your book, and then I can give you some guidance. The good news about the BizBook Publishing Hub is that if it's something outside of the scope of what I want to be known for, I've not only have I created this really big sort of network of referrals, I also have people that I've particularly worked with who are like leads for me, but I can then send clients back to them who need a little more help, and vice versa. If you're done with your book and looking for more marketing ideas, I mean, there's someone who does video trailers, which is really cool. It's like a speaker reel for your book. If you want to be fancy. So you can do that. But I just think, full service, we want to support more people getting their books out there. Any closing thoughts from you, Dan, as we wrap up here?
Because some people are going to be watching this or listening to this on audio, could you actually say the names of the links and spell them out if necessary so that people can write them down?
Very happy to. And you can, of course, you can put these in the show notes, bizbookpublishinghub.com. That's the free resource with 50 plus experts that guide entrepreneurs through writing, editing, publishing, and marketing a business book. If you yourself are an entrepreneur who works with entrepreneurs around becoming successful authors. You can sign up at robbiesamuels.com/biz book referral partners to learn more about becoming a hub partner. And then twice a year, I organize a Kindle cross promotion campaign. There's one happening right now, robbiesamuels.com/prime24. And lastly, if you are a business author who wants to join that campaign in the future, you can go to robbiesamuels.com/Kindle promo waitlist. And if you have a book that's ready for a launch, or perhaps want to discuss a relaunch, you can fill out a form at robbiesamuels.com/book launch support to get more details. All of this is available at robbiesamuels.com. I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur, and you will find out about all the other things that I do if you head over to my site.
Great. Thank you very much, Robbie. It's been very, very informative. Thank you so much for your time. And check out, and thanks everyone for listening. You can find more than 200 other episodes of Write Your Book in a Flash on this YouTube channel. Check them out.